So this is the silent part before we actually start the show. I mean, you know, we're not supposed to be talking here because in 5 seconds we're going to start the show. Right about now. And this is the start of the Link Online. Hello, I'm Mark Montgomery. Welcome to the Link Online, and with me in studio are the dynamic duo of Terry Haig.
Hey, Mark.
I give this great introduction.
That's under key. It's keying. It's a low key.
It's low key, yes. Try the key of C or something.
Okay. Hi, Mark.
That's okay. And Marie-Claude Simard.
Hi, Mark.
See, now
See,
that's
she
the
can
way,
do it, but she's a pro.
Now, I'll let you guys decide which camera we're using
Which
right
camera
now.
we use.
Okay.
Use them both at the same time. We'll be seen
We can do that, too.
In stereo.
Actually.
We've got guests of honor in the control room, too. Eh?
I know. It's
Wait,
management.
I have to find it. Where is it?
Are they management now? Leonardo and Pierre?
Well, sort of. By the way, I should mention that controlling us, or attempting to control at least, is our technician Chantal Saint-Sauveur. Big wave from Chantal. We should have a camera that way as well so people can see, you know. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Coming up in this half hour, Terry.
We have a story about the Canadian who proved Stephen Hawking wrong on one of his theories, and you'll hear how the great theoretical physicist reacted.
All right. Cape Town, South Africa is nearly out of water. Could it happen in Canada with all our water? Surprisingly, maybe.
Ask Nestle's. Lynn left us an item and some great photos of research deep under the waters off Canada's west coast. The information collected will help preserve and manage ecosystems.
And we'll have those stories and your comments coming up on this edition of The Link Online. All right, when the news of Stephen Hawking's death on Wednesday, March 14th was announced, the tributes and memories were shared widely. And Raymond Laflamme is Canada Research Chair in Quantum Computing and a professor at the Perimeter Institute. In a television interview from his classroom, Laflamme told CBC host Suhana Marchand that it is a sad day, but on the other hand, celebrate and reflect on an incredible life, somebody who's totally inspiring. Now, Raymond Laflamme was a doctoral student of Stephen Hawking's, and he had a smile in his eyes as he shared some of his fondest memories, and he began by telling how he first met Hawking.
The program that I started at the University of Cambridge was a master program, a one-year course. There's no exams, so you have no idea how you're doing. And at the end of the year, suddenly you have a week of exam, a week break, and then you get the results. And I had no idea if I had failed or passed. And it turned out that I passed with distinction, was asked to go and meet the person in charge of the general relativity group in Cambridge. When I met him, he said, "Stephen Hawking is waiting for you. He has been assigned as your supervisor." He was on the 3rd floor of the building. And I never thought that going downstairs was that hard.
I bet. And you know what? When you're going to meet one of the smartest guys in the world, you got to make sure you bring your A game. What did he say to you when you entered his office?
He said, "Welcome. I'm glad to meet you." And me, I was so struck and surprised. I had problem of adding 1 + 1, so I was really worried after I got out that he would say, "This guy is totally dumb." But Stephen was very gracious. He told me, "Okay, what's your plan for the summer?" I told him I was going to go back to Quebec and see my parents. And he says, "Okay, here's some papers, read them. And then in October, when you come back for the term, then we'll start talking about science."
Now, Raymond, I'm wondering if you've described Stephen Hawking as gracious. I'm wondering if he was gracious when you were sent out to try to prove one of his mathematical theories, but instead you disproved it. I mean, how do you tell a guy like Stephen Hawking that he's wrong?
Well, so Stephen, although being well-known and incredible reputation and many people looking up to him, is a scientist, and science is very democratic. At the end, you discuss ideas, and ideas can be right or wrong. The math empirical physics tells you what is right or what is wrong. So I slowly, painstakingly go through the math, and he would tell me, "Are you sure there you did the right thing? Are you sure you did the right approximation?" And I would go back in my office, work for a week, then come back and tell him, "This is the result I got." And fortunately, there's a colleague who was an postdoctoral fellow of Stephen, who came down Page from the University of Edmonton in Alberta, who had a very similar result to mine. So we kind of gang up together and suddenly convinced Stephen. And when he learned that he had made a mistake, he kind of turned around and says, "You guys are right. What I had suggested was incorrect," and he was incredibly gracious. He wrote letters of recommendation for me saying, "This guy has proved me wrong." And when I left Cambridge in 1988 after my PhD, he gave me a copy of his book with dedication saying, "To Ray, who told me that the arrow of time, who convinced me the arrow of time was not a boomerang."
That was Professor Raymond Laflamme with the Perimeter Institute in Waterloo, Ontario. Stephen Hawking visited the site in 2010. The following year, the Stephen Hawking Centre was opened. During his stay in Waterloo, Hawking described his impression of the centre, quote, "The of special places and special times where magical progress can happen cannot be overstated. I am hoping and expecting great things will happen here."
Cape Town, South Africa has been suffering a severe drought for years. Its reservoirs are almost dry, and it's expected that the 4 million or so residents will literally run out of water sometime within the next few months, unless there is significant rain. The city is facing a major crisis, and other areas in the world have also come close. Sao Paulo, Brazil, with its 21 million people, came very, very close in 2015, and other areas also have narrowly averted water disasters. But what about Canada? I mean, we have vast amounts of water, so it seems, but climate change is hurting Canada as well. And I spoke to hydrologist John Pomeroy, a distinguished professor in the Department of Geography and Planning at the University of Saskatchewan. And in this excerpt, I asked him first if there actually is less water in the world now.
Well, water is neither destroyed or created over the timescales that we're interested in. So we have the same amount of water, but it's not where we want it, and sometimes there's way too much of it. And that's an indication of some of the effects of our changing climate. What we're seeing in Cape Town in South Africa is a result of multi-year drought, along with difficulties in managing their water through those situations. And no, Canadians are not immune to that. We've had the most severe droughts in history just in the last 3 years in Western Canada and in Southern Ontario, Southern Quebec. And the fires associated with our drought, we've already seen that across many provinces. And the drinking water restrictions, water use restrictions, have already hit cities like Vancouver and Nanaimo in British Columbia. Southern Alberta has experienced exceptional drought over the last 15 years, including rivers like the Milk going dry back in 2001. So we're certainly not immune.
How is it that we can run out of water, though, even with droughts? Because if you look on a map, Canada's full of these lakes and rivers all over the place.
Yes, well, we have more water storage and more water flow per person than any other large country. But much of that water is in the north, and it flows to the north. So along our southern border, we are often in situations where we only have locally generated supplies. And for instance, southern Alberta is a semi-arid environment, and so it can go through years and long periods of time with extremely low precipitation that would create a full-blown desert in a warmer climate.
If you were to choose one thing that we could do to avoid a water shortage catastrophe, what would that be?
That would be comprehensive river basin management. Right now we have our major water bodies like the Great Lakes St. Lawrence or the Saskatchewan Red River Nelson River system or the Peace Athabasca Mackenzie River system are shared by multiple provinces or between the U.S. and Canada. I guess I would add the Columbia to that as well. Each province manages its section, and then there are agreements between the provinces and between the U.S. and Canada that try to smooth this over. But the gold standard is integrated river basin management, and we really need to move towards that.
Is there any Canadian city or area that is likely to face a real water crisis problem in the near future?
We don't have any that are in that situation of Cape Town. But that doesn't mean that we won't be in trouble in the decades to come. We're seeing manifestations of climate change with severity droughts and severity floods that are frankly absolutely shocking. And they expect these to get worse. And so we'll have to keep improving our game, improving our water management capabilities, and in some cases enhancing our storage capacities to get through these situations in the future.
And that was hydrologist John Pomeroy, a distinguished professor in the Department of Geography and Planning at the University of Saskatchewan. And the full is in the highlights section on the RCI Net webpage. And what he's saying about water, I mean, I remember as a child, there was never any water restrictions. In you know, summer you could be out there with jumping through the sprinkler as a kid, which was watering the lawn. But now, in almost every city across Canada in the summer, you are restricted in the amount of water that you can use. You know, you're not allowed to water your lawn every day, for example. You know, it's like Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 10:30 at night or something like that.
No, when I grew up in New York, though, we used to have, every couple of years we'd have a water shortage, which meant that you didn't get a free glass. They didn't put down a glass of water when you sat down to eat somewhere. Mm. And it's not so much, my son explained this to me. I said, well, and they had it in California a couple of years ago. I said, what's the deal? One glass of water? He said, it's not the water itself, it's cleaning the water glasses afterwards in the machines that sucks up all the water.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought of that.
Never thought of that. It's true. Yeah, you'd have to wash all these things.
Yeah.
What about you? Where did you grow up, Marie-Claude?
I grew up in Quebec City.
And have you seen the climate change there, or had you noticed it?
Well, actually, I moved in Montreal quite early in my life, so in my short time in Quebec City, I haven't really noticed. I mean, it's still like 5 degrees colder and more, always more snow than Montreal. It all doesn't seem to be.
Well, I remember the first time, when I came to Montreal. I mean, in the winter, you'd have enormous piles of snow, and you just don't see that anymore. And in where I come from in southern Ontario, in winter, they used to get lots and lots of snow. But now,
really?
hardly any in the winter. You know, if it comes down, you might get a couple of centimeters and it might stay for a few days. But
isn't it the last few years, I don't know if we have data for this, haven't a lot of the storms gone south of us? I mean, they've really clobbered Boston and places like that. Buffalo always gets creamed, but it seems like there's, I don't know, I have to see. It seems like the storms are going south of us, but that's just anecdotal. That's just my... that's my look at it, but it may not be accurate.
Well, if you're listening and you have some stories about how you've seen things change, why not drop us a line here at RCI Net and...
How about things change with the politicians listen to the scientists? Eh?
Politicians.
Jeez.
Listen to scientists.
Come on.
Oh,
it's
Terry.
not a hoax.
There you are dreaming again. Well, let's move on to some of the comments that you have, in fact, posted. And a reminder that you can post your thoughts and read the comments of others to each story if you go right down to the bottom of a story on any particular page. And starting us off today, we had quite a bit of reaction to a story called Auto Repair Fraud Revealed by Hidden Cameras. And Arv wrote this.
Why is anyone shocked that this happens in Ontario? The cops don't care that you are being bamboozled by the tow truck drivers, as their main goal is clear the accident and get the traffic moving. Witnessed an accident and the tow truck driver would witness an accident, and the tow truck driver would not tow the car to the body shop recommended by the insurance company. He tows it to the body shop he gets referrals for.
Well, there you go. Same story. A fellow named Grant wrote this.
Ban anyone caught in fraud from ever working or having licenses in their industry ever again. Remove licenses, industry memberships, and jail them for fraud.
Oh, there's a strong reaction, eh?
He's angry. Grant's
How about this one from Marcus?
Each case of fraud, that seems to be the word, should be condemned to reimburse 20 times the amount stolen. Then watch the fraud cases dwindle. He's probably got a really good point.
And those are some of the comments on the story about auto repair.
About fraud.
Fraud. Yes. Revealed by hidden cameras. You've got to watch those hidden cameras, folks. On a story from last month about Dalhousie University in Halifax looking for a new student provost, but saying only people from visible visible minorities or Aboriginals will be interviewed, Peter Stasiuk commented,
"This is a violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in the same manner that advertising a position and saying whites only would be a violation. How can the university get away with this? Hire the best person. If there aren't enough strong candidates from visible minorities, then work on getting more of them participating in the education programs needed to be qualified for these positions and let them compete fairly."
On a story about deaths from distracted driving increasing, Alan Toole wrote this.
"I drive to work every day and see people on their phones not paying attention to the road. Why not put some undercover cars out? Would be easy to pick these guys off. I also think licenses should be suspended, like drinking and driving, for using your phone while driving is just as dangerous."
Yeah, no, there is, in fact...
There is a law now.
Well, they have been using these sort of disguised people. They have people panhandling at traffic stops, right? You see that all the time, especially in Montreal. Well, in some places, they have police just dressed in civilian clothes standing at the corner, and people think they're panhandlers, so they drive up, use their phones, and the policeman knocks on the window and saying, "Gotcha."
Oh, not the squeegee kids, too.
Well, they're disguising themselves as squeezy kids, yeah.
Oh.
So they're getting them that way. All right, we had a comment this week to a story from 2016. Quebec declares war on wild boars, and that's B-O-A-R boars, not some people who you meet at parties, for example.
"Can't wait to hunt this coming October. A lot of meat to be harvested with wild boar."
Yeah. These are a problem, these wild boars, in several areas across the country. They were brought in because people thought, farmers thought they could, grow wild boars and sell the meat as exotic meat. Of course, some of the animals got out and got into the wild and they've reproduced. They like it here, like it in Saskatchewan, for example, and Manitoba, Quebec as well, I guess. And they're having a great old time in the woods, and they're causing enormous damage to farm fields and so on and so forth. Yeah,
and their great-grandchildren grew up to be politicians. Or public speakers.
There you go. All right, let's have a good news story. This comment on a story called The Vimy Oaks Book, A Journey to Peace. And this is a story from a year ago about a short graphic novel about Lieutenant Leslie Miller, who fought in the First World War. And on a shattered French battlefield near Vimy Ridge, he collected acorns from destroyed oak trees. Now, he brought them back to Canada and planted them on his small farm north of Toronto, where they grew into wonderful oak trees. And the acorns from these trees were collected and grown, and some were sent back to France 100 years later, last year, where they were ceremonially planted once again on French soil. Barbara Nixon wrote this comment.
"The story about Leslie Miller is a wonderful reminder about the important contributions and influences that a single human being can make. I, too, knew Leslie Miller as a child and have a number of lovely memories. I would welcome the opportunity to share my story with Monty MacDonald."
Now, just a clarification, Miller sold that farm in the 1960s. He died at age 90 in 1979. Monty MacDonald worked on the farm even after Miller sold it, and has helped preserve and grow more of the Vimy acorns and oaks and so on. So that's a very short version of that particular story. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and comments. We appreciate hearing from you. So again, drop us a line. And again, you can go down to the very bottom of any story on our website, and the comments section is open there. This is you.
New technology has given researchers the ability to drop cameras into the ocean and live stream images not seen before. One expedition took place between March 7th and the 14th on the central coast of British Columbia. Now, this is an area of great beauty and deep fjords, which are rich and complex ecosystems. The project was a joint effort involving the nonprofit Oceana Canada, Indigenous groups, the University of Victoria, and the government department responsible for oceans and fisheries. For details, Lynn Desjardins spoke with Alexandra Cousteau, senior advisor to Oceana, and the granddaughter of the famous marine explorer Jacques Cousteau.
This area below 200 meters has never been really explored before. This is the first time that we've had a chance to really see what's down there. And we've been really excited about the diversity that we've seen there. So the habitat structure on the rocky reefs and boulders allowed us to see organisms like large red tree corals and bubblegum corals, large mushroom or pom-pom shaped sea anemones, sponges, and other species that provide complex structure for diversity. Because if you think about it, fish that we like to eat, like rockfish, they need habitat, just like we do. They need homes where they can hide from predators and find food, find shelter. And so if we don't care for that habitat, then it's harder to rebuild those fisheries. And so the work that we're doing here in partnership with other NGOs like Ocean Networks Canada, with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, with First Nations groups as well, that's really important for us to know what places we need to protect so that these species can be rebuilt.
In what forms are you collecting information?
So we're using a drop camera, and this is a camera that we drop off the back of the boat and tow along behind us, and it allows us to get high-definition video from the bottom of the ocean, and that's live streamed back up to the ship, so we can actually see what the camera's seeing in real time. But what's really exciting is that we've been able to live stream that on our website so that members of the public can see it as well. And we've been narrating that live stream with scientists on board so people can listen to what we're seeing and hear commentary and explanations about what's on the screen.
And where will this information be shared?
So it is already been shared on oceana.ca/protect oceans. And there's maps of where we've been with photos and videos, interviews with local communities and scientists, and the live stream from the bottom of the sea. So that is all ready on our site, so that and people can go check it out.
And is government going to use this for management purposes?
Absolutely. So that's what's tremendously exciting about it, is that we're looking at mapping this area for marine planning purposes and being able to decide which areas need to be protected from human threats, so that the abundance and diversity of this part of the Canadian coastline can be protected from human threat.
That was part of Lynn's conversation with Alexandra Cousteau, Senior Advisor to Oceana, and grandmother of the famous marine explorer Jacques Cousteau. Lynn posted some of the photos captured under the sea, as well as links to videos shot by the undersea camera. You can find them on our website at rcinet.ca.
All right. Terry, do you remember what the original Jacques Cousteau films on TV when they're showing them? That was really something at the time, eh?
It was amazing.
No, you need to put your mic on.
He's a totally great guy. I mean, but that was Lloyd Bridges, too, wasn't it?
Oh, that was Sea Hunt.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
You do?
Of course I remember that. But what about Gilligan?
And his island.
And his island. Now, there was a show. Now, that was television. Same time as Beverly Hillbillies. That's when television was television, Montgomery.
Well,
None of this stuff you see now, eh?
No,
baseball games and hockey games, and if anybody watches those.
Petticoat Junction, for heaven's sake.
Wow, no, Barbara Stanwyck. Bob Denver.
Bob Denver.
Gilligan.
Yeah, and Alan Hale.
Alan Hale.
Was the captain.
That's right, and Tina Louise.
Was
the movie star.
The movie star, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Whatever became of them?
Well, hopefully they didn't sell out their residuals.
Now you started me thinking about old shows. Speaking of captains, who is the captain of that PT boat series, the comedy series?
Ernest Borgnine.
Ernest Borgnine. There was a great actor. Boy, he was a...
Television was television in those days, Montgomery. I tell you, when I was a young kid, boy, we had television, eh?
But he was also a great movie actor.
He won an Academy Award for Marty.
That was the winning question in the big TV quiz show scandal. Remember that?
Was it?
Yeah, that's actually before our time.
No, I'm sorry. No, I was there. I was there. Speak for yourself.
Okay,
lad.
it was before my time. But yeah, you remember the big... it was
Ernest Borgnine was the big question?
Yeah, the $64,000 question. And they, when they rigged the thing because they didn't like the guy who kept winning.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't photogenic.
Good movie about that Robert Redford directed.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah. The $64,000 question, maybe.
No, it's called Quiz Show or something.
Quiz Show, okay, yeah. Anyway, so that was the question. Who won the Academy Award?
For Marty.
For Marty.
What do you want to do tonight, Marty? Let's go to Times Square, Angie. I got nothing to do. Let's go to Times Square, Angie.
That being said, what about this weekend here in Montreal? I have to say, we failed. We have failed.
Yes.
Speak for yourself. I don't even know what you're going to say yet.
It's St. Pat's Day coming up,
Yeah.
the big parade in Montreal. Marie-Claude called me and said, we should do something, but it was too late because it was last night, late at night. And
I've been in that parade, boy. It's cold. March 17th can be really
I've
cold.
seen people in bathing suits at watching the parade, drinking
bathing
beer
suits?
in green bathing suits and drinking beer. So it depends on the year.
It's the third biggest in the
Yeah.
world behind
Yeah.
behind New York and Boston.
It's also one of the longest continuously running St. Pat's parades in the world, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, when I was driving a taxi, the most money I ever made was working on St. Patrick's Day. Because you talk about long running. The party is long running.
Yes.
But I would say we failed because we don't have any green on. We're not wearing green. We should be
Well,
wearing
it's tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but the show is today, so we're not going to be. We're not going to be. We're going to be in the parade. We're going to be watching the parade.
There's going to be a parade in Quebec City next weekend, so we
For
could
who? For what?
pretend.
For St. Patrick's?
Yes. They're having one in Old Quebec next weekend.
Huh.
And I'll be there, so.
Where, in the old city or down below in Lower Town?
I'm not sure, but
Uptown.
I think it's in the old city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have been on other radio programs? You've been in part of the parade.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's not fun. You try to you avoid the station manager when he comes looking, boy. you suddenly don't let him catch your eye, whatever you do.
Oh, Terry.
No, I gotta go. Oh my God, this weekend I gotta take my wife to. Yeah, okay. Whoa. No, you don't. The last place you want to be on a Sunday is in the St. Patrick's. I mean, all things considered, and my grandparents are Irish. I mean,
Hague is a great
Scotch.
name.
Well, it's Scotch.
Yeah,
Scott. But Scotch.
No, Hague is the Scotch.
Yes.
You're just Hague.
If we only hadn't sold the stock in it.
If you hadn't sold the distillery, you wouldn't be here.
Ah, jeez.
But they're right. At this time of year in Montreal, the weather can be sometimes on parade day horrific.
Yeah. It's always the marking point, though. It's the day I always figure that maybe spring is coming. I convince myself that if it's nice on St. Patrick's Day, spring will in fact come.
So we'll have a nice Easter.
Well, actually, there's an adage or a myth that is actually
an
true.
old saying.
It's not a saying, but every year it snows on St. Patrick's Day.
Really?
Either on the parade day or on the actual St. Patrick's Day.
That's an old Canadian saying. It has to be.
Well, I always know that winter isn't over before St. Patrick's Day.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a marker for some reason. Yeah. Either way.
But there was a couple of years ago, it was an extremely nice day, and then a couple of years before that, it was like minus 40 or something with a terrible wind blowing. I remember I wanted to go down and see it, but I was frozen after about 5 minutes, and I thought, how can these people stay on those floats in that weather? But
well,
they
the
did.
week after next, spring is coming because we got baseball coming to Montreal.
You
2
think
exhibition games.
Oh, exhibition games.
Well, yeah.
Well, you're a fan. You want baseball to come back forever.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to.
No?
I can't even I can't even talk about the Mountain Road with the people from Projet Montreal, let alone convince them to bring a baseball team back.
Oh, you're talking about political situations
No, I'm
locally?
not talking about it. Just an illusion.
All right. What are you going to do on the weekend, by the way?
I'm going to see Black Panther.
Oh, yeah, the film.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Marie-Claude, what are you doing?
Actually, I'm going to go to listen to some Irish music in one of those pubs if you go in a lot of Irish pubs in Montreal, there are going to be a lot of what they call sessions.
That's right. Oh, they go crazy. That's right.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of business in those pubs in downtown Montreal.
Our young Yardie McCordy goes to die on the bridge of Toom today. Hey!
I don't know that one. How about Danny Boy?
No, I think that's Tin Pan Alley.
Okay.
Did an Irish singer ever sing it?
What was the great song at the end of The Waking of Ned Devine? Did you see that movie?
That's sporadically.
The Parting Glass. That's a great song, but I'm not going to do it a damage by attempting to sing it. In fact, I think
Well,
we
did
should.
you ever go across the sea to Ireland? And maybe at the closing of your day, you will sit and watch the moon rise over something, and watch the sunrise, and watch the moon go down on Galway Bay.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will bid you a fond farewell from our studios here in Radio Canada International. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.